Americans are asking the question, who the hell is Jorge Ramos? Well, he's this anchor on Univision that just did a media stunt at a Donald Trump press conference, and it's about the best promo he's ever had. That's what this is. So Trump is back in the news. And let me just point out, number one, Trump did not manufacture this. He didn't create it. He only responded to it. Now, those are absolutes. And here's another absolute. When you have a press conference, there has to be some formality to it. You can't have 4, 5, 6 people standing up, shouting questions, and the person who shouts the loudest is the one that gets called on. And I respect the fact that Trump was trying to do a press conference last night in Dubuque, Iowa, and he was calling on reporters. How is it that every freaking reporter in the room knew what the formality of it was, except this guy named Ramos, who pulled a media stunt, and it's the best promotion, it's the most talked about event this guy's ever had in his entire goddamn career. And so now Trump's the bad guy. Look, I'm not defending Trump. I'm defending the process. If anybody at the White House press corps were to pull that kind of a stunt, they would have been pushed right out of the room. And I don't know if they'd have been allowed back in. Ramos gets up and starts making statements about getting rid of 11 million undocumented workers and immigrants in this country. He's telling Trump that he can't do it. So he wants to get noticed. He wants to get called on. Trump wasn't ready to call on him. And the thing that's interesting about this is that this guy Ramos is an anchor on Univision. Now, when has Donald Trump turned down interviews with notable news anchors? Trump's everywhere. Trump interviews with everybody. If this guy wanted to interview Trump so bad, why didn't he invite him? Maybe he has. I don't know. But I think that we got to be fair about this, that here's Trump trying to do a press conference, and then this unfolds. Last night in Dubuque, Iowa.
Trump has a question about immigration. Your immigration plan.
Okay, who's next? Yeah, please.
Trump, I have a question.
Excuse me, sit down. You weren't called. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Go ahead.
I have the right to ask the question.
No, you don't. You haven't been called.
No, I have the right to ask the question.
Go back to Univision.
This is the question.
Go ahead.
You cannot deport 11 million.
Go ahead.
You cannot deport 11 million people. You cannot build a 1,900-mile wall.
Okay.
You cannot deny citizenship.
All right, so this guy is supposed to be a news anchor, and he's telling Trump that he can't build a wall. He's telling Trump that he can't deport people. Now, where's the objectivity there? That's not reporting. That's standing up, interrupting the process, and making a statement. And Trump did the right thing by telling him to get his ass back to Univision, because that's where he belongs. Now, look, this is the attraction of Trump. It's a matter of respect. I guarantee you Trump's going to go up in the polls on this one. He doesn't have to take that crap, okay? And so then Trump is asked, how did he handle that?
Yes, go ahead.
Right. Mr. Trump,
Yes.
You're running for president, and one of our country's top journalists, the main anchor of Univision, was just escorted out of your news conference. Do you think you handled that situation correctly?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know really much about him. I don't believe I've ever met him, except he started screaming, and I didn't escort him out. You'll have to talk to security, whoever security has escorted him out. But certainly he was not chosen. I chose you. I chose other people to answer. I mean, you're asking me questions. He just stands up and starts screaming. So, maybe he's at fault also. But I don't consider that. I mean, somebody walked him out. I don't even know where he is. I don't mind if he comes back, frankly.
And he did come back, and he ended up asking a question. But that's irrelevant. There has to be some formality to all of this. And I'd like to see some of the network reporters in the corporate mainstream media to stand up and start interrupting the president and see how President Obama would respond to that. I think that Obama would have responded exactly the same way Trump did. And Trump has every right to do it that way. So this morning on the Today Show, Trump is asked about it.
Term bully Donald when it comes to your dealings with the press? I'm not a bully. In fact, I think it's just the opposite way. I'm not a bully. You saw that last night. This man gets up and starts ranting and raving and screaming and honestly very disrespectful to all the other reporters. We had a packed house. We had a tremendous group of people in Iowa. The room was packed with thousands of people. The press room was packed prior to. I did a press event prior to. And he gets up and just starts ranting and raving.
Right. Thing is, Trump said, in that exchange with Ramos, you haven't been called. Trump didn't say that I'm not going to call on you. Just you haven't been called. Trump wasn't prepared to call on him, and he has every right. And the media has got to show some kind of respect to the guy who is leading in the polls. But respect has fallen by the wayside. Lindsey Graham is flat out attacking. He knows he's not going to get the nomination. He's polling in the toilet. So now he's trying to formulate the narrative around Trump. This is the senator from South Carolina.
If he becomes the nominee, we'll get killed. The policies that Mr. Trump is proposing are demagoguery. His approach to describing illegal immigrants or hurting us with Hispanics, the way he attacks women is going to be a death blow to the future of our party. Donald Trump is not going to be the nominee of the Republican Party. If he is, that's the end of the Republican Party. He is shallow. He's ill-prepared to be commander-in-chief. He doesn't know what he's talking about in terms of how our laws work. Mm-hmm. He says the worst things possible about immigrants and women, and he's a complete idiot when it comes to Mideast policy. And the chairman of our party thought that Donald Trump was a net positive. But let me tell you, I think he's hurting our party.
You could dissect that soundbite sentence by sentence, play it for Trump, and let him respond to everything, and you'd never hear from Lindsey Graham again. Now, here's the entertainment cut of the day. Trump talks about teleprompters. Now, the conservative media has been all over Obama over the years for the use of a teleprompter, which is standard operating procedure for anybody. By the way, I do not have a teleprompter as I look at you in the camera. I don't need one. And we don't recut. This is the way it is. But he just play the cut. This is just priceless. I love it.
These other guys, they go around, they make a speech in front of 21 people. Nobody cares. They can make the same. They read the same speech. They have teleprompters. I say we should outlaw teleprompters for anybody, right? For anybody running for president. You shouldn't be. You know how easy that would be? Instead of this, I'm working my ass off. Okay?
Now, we got to go back to Lindsey Graham and ask him if he agrees with that policy that we should outlaw teleprompters. Lots coming up on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. We've got Chris Van Hollen. We've also got Robert Greenwald talking to us about the Islamic State and are we doing the right thing with ISIS. Dean Blanchard joins us as they are mopping up down in the Gulf the mess that BP made years ago. And now, of course, the Obama administration wants to drill in the Arctic. And Hillary Clinton has an interesting standpoint on all of that, and I'll compare it to Keystone. It's all coming up. Stay with us. This is Ed Schultz News and Commentary. We're right back. Hey, folks, you've heard me talk about BioGreen Clean. I'm going to show you right now on my airplane just how tough this is. I want you to keep in mind, chemical-free, 100% plant-derived, biodegradable. It is the safest cleaner that you can get, and it's the most effective. Go to our website, wegoted.com, or go to biogreenclean.com. www.biogreenclean and order today.
We perpetuate a culture of crime all the way from Wall Street right down to the main street in our hometowns. It's worse than it has been since FDR took control of the problem and said we can't count on industry taking care of the American labor. They probably have already engaged into some type of criminal cover-up, and the law prohibits the government from even doing anything about it.
Catch America's lawyer Mike Papantonio on YouTube at youtube.com/GoLeftTV.
Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team bring you this Ed Schultz News and Commentary Monday through Friday. Great to have you with us. They shouldn't be called the Republican Party. They should be called the Fatalist Party. Here we go again. And the scary thing about this is that there will be a narrative behind what Ted Cruz is saying collectively that people think, yeah, this is a good idea. Cruz is now saying that he doesn't think that the Republican leadership is serious about defunding Planned Parenthood, so they should connect it to the shutdown. That's right, a government shutdown. We don't have enough money to run the government. The last time they pulled this stunt, it cost the Treasury $25 billion. And so we throw billions of dollars around in Washington as if they're $5 bills when it comes to what the Republicans want to do. But when it comes to the priorities of the American people, they don't have pennies. Let's go to Chris Van Hollen. He's a ranking member on the House Budget Committee. Congressman, great to have you with us.
Ed, great to be with you.
Your thoughts on the possibility of connecting a radical move of defunding Planned Parenthood to a government shutdown. Is this the way it's going to work?
Well, this is a real danger right now. I remember 2 years ago, Ed, when Speaker Boehner, at just this time of year, said that he was going to be able to stop the Tea Party Republicans from shutting down the government. He wasn't able to do it. Ted Cruz and the Tea Party crew said that they wanted to shut down the government in order to shut down Obamacare, shut down the Affordable Care Act. And they did it for 16 days at great cost to the country. Now these same people, Ted Cruz and the Tea Party, are saying they're going to shut down the government in order to defund Planned Parenthood, in order to hurt women's health programs. And once again, you hear people like Speaker Boehner and Leader McConnell say, we're not going to let this happen. But we heard that before. And at the end of the day, the Tea Party folks have an awful lot of power in both the House and the Senate. So we got a fight on our hands. Once again, they're trying to use the threat of a government shutdown to get their way, in this case, trying to harm women's health programs.
Well, Congressman, what makes it more severe is the backdrop of presidential politics and people in competition for the cameras and the microphones to support their own position. What about that?
Well, that's right. I mean, 2 years ago, we had the spectacle of Senator Cruz reading green eggs and ham on the floor of the Senate. Now you've got a whole host of Republican senators who are running for president who want to use the Senate as their personal stage in their presidential ambitions. And so it looks like they may well be putting, their own campaigns, their own politics ahead of the country. So we need to be ready. We need to let the public know what's going on so that this tactic will backfire.
Okay, this is whole conversation about defunding Planned Parenthood is really a race to the bottom as to who could be the most conservative, isn't it?
Well, that's right. I mean, the reality is that this is all posturing on their part. As people know, the federal government doesn't provide any funds to Planned Parenthood that go for the purpose of women, reproductive health choice to abortion. We're finding out that these videos, in many cases, were fraudulently made. But that's not stopping them from trying to make this an issue. And again, threatening to shut down the entire operations of government, right, that impact veterans, that impact Social Security in terms of the ability to have people on hand to help deliver, support in many cases, and the whole range of other important issues that the federal government carries on day to day.
So what would be the political strategy to combat this, to avert this? Would the Democrats move at all on Planned Parenthood to give these people what they want? I know that's a rather absurd question, but it needs to be asked.
No. We're not going to let the Republicans use the threat of government shutdown to defund women's health, just like we prevented them from using this tactic to shut down the Affordable Care Act.
So this is a Republican fight. It's in the Republican camp, and there doesn't sound like there's any response coming from the Democrats on this, right?
Well, I mean, this is why I think it's important for us to be talking about this right now. I mean, I will help lead the fight against this government shutdown effort.
Sure.
I remember 2 years ago, we had to use a lot of parliamentary procedures to expose the sort of folly of what the Republicans were doing. And, we put an end to it after 16 days, but we don't even want to get it started this time.
Okay. Congressman Chris Van Hollen, great to visit. Appreciate your time. We'll do it again. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ed. Take
you
care.
bet.
Bye.
Chris Van Hollen with us. He's ranking member of the House Budget Committee. Now this.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania to the auto factories of Michigan to the modern makers movement. Manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, Bio Green Clean, and the iSave team bring you this production. Ed Schultz news and commentary every day, Monday through Friday. One thing that has not come up on the campaign trail very much is ISIS. Now, the country right now seems to be fascinated with this Donald Trump throwing people out of press conferences, as we've talked about, and the Megyn Kelly spat. By the way, the ratings for Megyn Kelly through the roof. I mean, we can get so disfocused as a country so fast. And if we're not entertained, we don't pay attention to what the hell's going on. What do you think about Turkey now helping the United States? The technical details finally finalized that Turkey is now going to be doing airstrikes against ISIS in Syria and also Iraq. Now, no matter how you slash this or slice it or cut it or whatever, this is an expansion of an air campaign that arguably is not working. Conversation with us the other day, Congressman Jim McDermott, who recently went to Turkey, talked to some Iraqi people. This is the reaction he had.
Well, I just got back from being in Turkey, talking to people about what's going on in Iraq and what's going to happen. They don't think that the Americans are going to be able to solve it. I was listening to clerics, both Sunni and Shia, saying, you've got to give us a chance to start using our power here, and your bombing from the air is not going to solve it.
Okay, so the bombing from the air is not going to solve it. That's what people on the ground are saying. Yet the Turkish air campaign against the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria is a major expansion, which is being heralded by the White House and the Pentagon. The fact that Turkey is now going to be flying alongside other coalition aircraft is a significant step forward, and one we've been waiting for, according to a Pentagon spokesperson. Well, I put this question and phrased it this way because I think this is the emotion of the American people. ISIS is doing what to people? They're cutting their heads off. I approached the congressman with this.
But what do we do about ISIS? I mean, what do we do about this radical jihadist group that is cutting heads off of Christians?
Some of that is, we're getting a lot of, they think we're getting more media showing those things than really, they don't think it is so impossible to deal with. They say let us have a chance to work it out with our people, and don't make it worse by continuing to bomb that way.
So is the caliphate just going to dissolve if we stop air campaigns? Now, what's interesting about this, as I started this segment telling you, there's very few questions that are being asked by mainstream media to any of the candidates on this issue. This reminds me of Afghanistan 10 years ago, when there was this constant air campaign that was taking place, and everybody back in America was thinking, we're taking care of it. In the meantime, all the bombing that we were doing was doing nothing but pissing people off in that region, and we weren't making the strides that we were being told we were making. And in the middle of that was Brave New Films. Robert Greenwald joins us to talk about that. Mr. Greenwald, good to have you back with us.
Thank you, Ed. Great to be with you.
Is this a repeat of what we saw a decade ago in Afghanistan? Is the mindset similar?
Well, I'm afraid that in some ways it is, and I want to salute you, Ed. You were one of the only people who was willing to have us on to talk to me after I came back from Afghanistan, after we were doing the filming for the Rethink Afghanistan campaign. And what we said then, and some of it is very applicable now, is yes, horrible things had been done by the Taliban. Yes, horrible things are being done by ISIS. But damn it, how many times will we have to do it to learn that there's not a simple-minded throwing a switch, throwing a bomb, invade, occupy a drone, clapping our hands, problem solved. It doesn't work, it hasn't worked, and it won't work. These are deep-seated, complicated, horrific problems, locally based, and which there must be support to the degree we're going to be involved supporting local efforts. We don't have all the answers.
If you listen to the administration, this is a heralded move by the Turkish people, that they call it an important development in the fight. We've been trying to work out the logistical details. We've been able to do that. We think that this is an important step forward. Is the Obama administration just 180 degrees off the mark on this?
Well, I think that the administration and the Pentagon, or at least some forces within the administration, there have been internal battles, as we saw with Afghanistan, and that's when we started to see some progress. CIA versus Pentagon, Pentagon versus State Department versus people in Obama circles, and there were conflicts internally. Unfortunately, Ed, year after year, war after war, invasion after invasion, occupation after occupation, the Pentagon and the CIA seem to continue to win. How many times do they have to fail with a militaristic policy that leaves people dead on both sides, that spends billions of our dollars, and we turn around and say, oh, wait, it didn't work in Afghanistan, let's do the same damn thing again, and it's not going to work again.
So if it's working, and I asked a rhetorical question, if it's working, then why do we need Turkey in the fight? And Jim McDermott addressed the fact that, the bombing's not working. Here it is.
There's no evidence that we're pushing anybody back. I mean, if you believe the people who are saying that everything is all better because we're bombing every day, you really are believing the propaganda that's coming out of the administration. And I just think we got to be careful of what we do.
Yeah.
Your thoughts, Robert?
Well, these are the same people, Ed, who told us, oh, we've got drones, and the only people we're going to kill with drones are the bad guys.
Yeah.
Well, it was propaganda, it was a lie, it was distorted, and the same thing is happening here. Again, ISIS is doing horrible, terrible things. The question is, how do you help rather than make the problem worse? How do you do a thoughtful approach rather than say, yeah, send in some more bombs, get another country involved, kill more people, and that will solve the problem? It's not doing it.
Mainstream corporate media not asking the questions of the candidates on the campaign trail. What do you make of it?
I don't even have the words for it, Ed. You know, the number of stories, the number of hours, the number of television stations, radio and print that obsess over Trump is beyond disgusting. I mean, it's all about personality, and it's all about ratings. Now, eventually, he will stop getting the big ratings because, like any flash, people will get bored of him. They will get tired of him. The ratings will fall off. But in the meantime, how awful is it to see the media, as they complain about Trump, continue to give him hour after hour? I think you probably saw that study that he's had more time on the air than all the other candidates combined running for president on the Republican side.
Yeah, I did. And you think there's going to be a burnout factor eventually?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
no, there has to be. I mean, if you look at it, this is not politics. This is personality, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at it from a personality point of view, he's a fascinating, maybe train wreck. People will get enough of him. And also, he's an unpleasant, mean-spirited guy. That's going to come through. That's going to get to people. They're going to turn off the set. The ratings will plummet. And then the traditional media will say, oh, well, he was no good anyway, after they've given him all this egregious time and attention.
The fact that we're spending so much time on Trump, the quote media, people that have access to reach thousands in the corporate media and mainstream media, this story about the air campaign that is not working against ISIS gets shoved under the rug. And that's really, as I see it, is what's happening. I mean, Jim McDermott has had no coverage anywhere that I know of on the network level after his trip to Turkey, which is reminiscent of, a lot of guys who went to Iraq and came back and said, this thing ain't working. Here we are again.
It's exactly true, and thank goodness for what you do, Ed. We had that experience when I went to Afghanistan. There was no coverage. When I went to Pakistan and saw the drone people, there was very little coverage until we brought the drone survivors over here. And again, you're right. People would rather cover the most inane, silly, ridiculous stuff with Trump than talk about the deep-seated, profound issues, ISIS, foreign policy, inequality. Goodness knows there's enough to talk about, but they're not doing it.
The only avenue that I think that could intercept this story is Joe Biden getting in the race because he's got a day job with the President of the United States, and President Obama thinks that this air campaign and this expansion is going to be able to beat back ISIS to the point where they're not going to be a threat to us. And that's the only avenue that I see that is going to bring this into the fold. But the policy... What's the policy? Just keep bombing until they give up, and we know damn well they're not going to do that. If it's not working, when do we question the policy?
Well, that's a hell of a good question. It's exactly the right question. We saw that. We saw the same things played out. Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, drones. Libya, where we thought we came in and saved the day by a military intervention, and now the country is in worse shape than ever. Yemen. I mean, I don't know how many times it's really heartbreaking, Ed, on a basic level, how many lives and the trillions of dollars, and we do versions of the same policy, and the so-called wise people in D.C. are, the military-industrial congressional complex and think tank. For the most part, it's a self-supporting, self-reinforcing idea that this is the way smart and thoughtful people do it. Well, it's nonsense.
Robert Greenwald, Brave New Films. Always great to visit. Appreciate your take and always good to visit. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Ed. Take care.
This is Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Now this. It's time to continue our conversation about mechanical insulation. Mechanical insulation is for the piping systems in our nation's commercial and industrial facilities. Facility owners are burning up billions of dollars through the lack of mechanical insulation on these piping systems. Call the iSave team. Insulation saves America valuable energy, and this team of energy conservation specialists is shovel-ready to save you money. Visit iSaveTeam.org to have a specialist give your plant an energy audit.
The Ed Schultz Internet broadcast is brought to you by the Ring of Fire radio show. Listen to the Ring of Fire weekends on radio stations across the country. Get more information and the news of the day at ringoffireradio.com.
Communication Workers of America, they are building just an alliance of allies across the board to restore our democracy, our voting rights. Their activism is outstanding. Communication Workers of America, you can find out more at their website at cwa-union.org. Alliance for American Manufacturing also sponsors Ed Schultz News and Commentary, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team. All right. If you've followed my work in recent years, you know where I stand on drilling anywhere, and I've been very consistent. I'm against Arctic drilling. I'm against the Keystone XL pipeline over the aquifer. I was all over BP, went down and did a 5-part series on what was going on in the aftermath and how BP was trying to legally weasel out of their commitment to the folks in the Gulf and businesses and lives that they destroyed. Look, we have to transition. There's enough oil being pulled out of the planet right now. We don't have to do any more drilling. We don't have to take any more risks. Now, this is a very interesting position by Hillary Clinton. This is a soundbite from August 18th. Now, the mainstream media is finally on this story, that there is drilling that's going to be done by Shell, and it's been approved by the Obama administration in Alaska, in pristine area. Now, this is where Hillary Clinton splits with the administration.
I think the very grave difficulties that Shell encountered the last time they tried to do that should be a red flag for anybody. I have been been to the Arctic. I have been to Barrow, our most northernmost outpost in the United States, and I think we should not risk the potential catastrophes that could come about from accidents in looking for more oil in a pristine, one of the few remaining pristine regions of the world.
Oh, Hillary, you and I are just going to get along so good. You're going to be loving me before this is over with. Let me unpack this soundbite. So Hillary Clinton is concerned about a potential catastrophe. She used the word accident. She used the word risk. She says that she has been to Alaska and seen this pristine area. This doesn't jive with her position on the Keystone XL pipeline. My question, have you been to Nebraska, Hillary? My question, Hillary, do you think it's a risk to put a pipeline over the Olagala Aquifer? Do you think that there is a potential catastrophe, seeing that the aquifer is less than 2 feet below the soil? And if there is an oil leak, they can't clean it up, and it's going to affect the entire Midwest. Do we need to take that risk? Hillary Clinton is horribly, horribly inconsistent. There's no way you can sit here and say that you're okay with Arctic drilling and not okay with Keystone, or vice versa. You're against Arctic drilling, but of course you're okay with Keystone, or you won't even take a position on it. And this walks right, her entire campaign, it walks it right in to the do you trust Hillary poll question. And is she trustworthy? The soundbite that she just gave on Alaska, which was back on August 18th, is golden. It's perfect. She's been there. She's seen it. She understands the potential risk. She understands the potential catastrophe. She's concerned about an accident. She's concerned about the risk. We shouldn't go down this road. That's exactly her answer, what it should be for the Keystone XL pipeline. And how do I know? Go ask the folks down in the Gulf again what they're dealing with and how their lives have been turned upside down. I want to go now to Dean Blanchard. He is an owner of Blanchard Seafood. He was one of the largest shrimp distributors in the United States until BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico took place. Dean, it is good to have you with us, Ed Schultz, News and Commentary. How are you today?
Oh, pretty good. How you doing, Ed?
Good, good. How's life? You told me several months ago that you were on the brink, that you were going to have to make a decision around Labor Day about what you were going to do because of the devastating effects of your business and what you've suffered because of the BP oil spill 5+ years ago. Where are you now?
Well, we're pretty much in the same shape. We got certain species starting to rebound a little bit, and we got certain species that just going extinct.
Are you going to stay in business?
We thinking about it. I'm going to try. I'm 56 years old. It's kind of hard to start over without no money. I mean, BP has never paid us nothing. I keep thinking of Alaska, drilling in Alaska. If, BP did whatever it took to get to the Hollen, Louisiana. It took 3 million years to create this delta over here, and the oil companies destroyed it in 70 years. Whatever it took to get to the Hall, it didn't matter. They carved waterways through the marshes, and I could see them doing the same thing in Alaska. I mean, I got a feeling if the Hall's underneath the glacier, that glacier's not going to have much of a chance of staying there.
So you think, from experience, and you've seen it, that the oil companies are going to do whatever they have to do to make this happen?
Oh, I can tell you exactly what's going to happen over there. You're going to have a bunch of rich politicians. You're going to have starving Native Americans, and then they're going to melt the glaciers. You can take that to the bank.
Well, is it? I keep seeing these stories about BP is going to pay out, and they're making everybody whole. What's the real story down there now?
The oil companies are greedy, and they'll do whatever it takes to get their ultimate goal, which is to get to the oil. I mean, they destroyed this place, just destroyed it, and not being held responsible by all the graft that they put out to the politicians. The oil companies control the Coast Guard. They control it, so there's nobody regulating these people. They just do whatever they want, whatever it takes to get to their ultimate goal, which is profit.
And, of course, they end up cash whipping anybody who gets in their way, right?
Well, look at your national wildlife. We got 19 units in the state of Louisiana, and BP and the oil companies are drilling in 19 of our natural refuge. I mean, there's no other place in the country. I mean, we in the seafood, we can't get in those natural refuges to do anything, but the oil companies work their way in.
So the seafood industry in the Gulf right now, how would you capsulize it the way it is now as compared to what it was before the spill?
Oh, it's completely different. Every day it's like waking up in a new world. I mean, it's like a bizarro world. Everything's backwards. Everything's different than what it was.
And when you hear that the United States is going to allow an oil company to drill offshore in Alaska, I mean, how does that news hit your ears? I mean, you got to be shaking your head. You got to be you just can't believe this is. We haven't learned a damn thing, have we?
Well, we never learned nothing, and I told my wife yesterday we're gonna have to take a trip to Alaska to see what it looks like now, because it'll never look like that again.
Dean Blanchard, always great to have you with us. He is the owner of Blanchard Seafood. He, of course, how is your business today as opposed to what it was before the oil spill? Give our listeners a snapshot of that.
It's completely different. We've cut out the size of our workforce, and I'm having to come in here and work harder to try to survive. I had the largest seafood company in the worst impacted area, and BP I've not gotten a court date. I haven't got nothing with BP since 2010, a little siphon they give us. And basically they want to pay us the same as they'd pay a shoe store 300 miles north of the Gulf. I mean, it's unbelievable. We don't have a chance in Louisiana. Our politicians have been bought off from day one.
Dean Blanchard, keep up the fight, my friend. Thanks so much, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you, Ed.
You
Come
bet.
down and visit us sometime.
I will do that, my friend. Thanks so much. Great people in Louisiana, no doubt. And that's just a voice of a man who has seen his life and his business go upside down because the oil companies have been able to do whatever the hell they want to do. And BP did what they did to the Gulf, and the restoration and the repercussions still being felt. And there has not been restitution the way it's been reported. And if you're going to allow drilling in the Arctic, then you're going to have to put up with the same damn stuff down the road. There's no question about it. We got enough oil. We got enough oil that's being used right now on this planet. We don't need to be digging anymore. And the Keystone XL pipeline is just a microcosm of the mindset that's taking place across this country. Hillary, use your soundbite on Alaska and apply the very same terminology and thought process to your position on Keystone. That's what you ought to do. This is Ed Schultz News and Commentary, brought to you by Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team. We're back tomorrow.